Are you paying attention?
There are many now who see the big lies.
Do you see the big lies?
Many folks who want to get busy.
Are you getting busy?
And your praise fearless, ill-organized.
Yeah, they're scared.
And you notice that it's starting to happen.
It is happening.
You've betrayed their trust, you now realize.
The media lied.
The line's been crossed in the sand, and the fire's been fanned. All the people demand to hear the plot that you planned. You won't be trusted anymore.
Alrighty, dighty. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is Monday, the 30th of June, 2025, last day of the month, and now we're moving into July. Anyway, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist, and as always, our broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. And I got to tell you, there's a special going on that they have extended. It's a July 4th Independence Day special. And if you go to our website, that is the WTFReports.com, you'll see a pop-up there for the Wave Watch. And if you decide that you want to get one, you're going to get an extra $50 off. Usually you get $100 off with our promo code, but you'll get $150 off. Plus, if you're one of the first 200 people that order, you'll get a patriotic red, white, and blue wristband. So that's inconsequential, but it's a nice little addition. So I would implore you to at least check it out. You're doing yourself a tremendous disservice if you don't check out what the Wave Watch is. It is Rife technology, and it was designed, the whole frequency thing was put together by Royal Raymond Rife. And, of course, Tesla said frequency is everything, and this is right in line with that. So check out the Wave Watch. I've been using mine now for several months. The new version, the Wave Watch 2.0, started using that about a month ago, and I've been running programs for my eyes. And my eyesight is once again getting better and better. I can read the newspaper, which I couldn't do before. Anyway, enough said about the Wave Watch. Please check it out. Go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and check it out. Check it out. Anyway, okay, there's so much to talk about right now. Over the weekend, up in Idaho, apparently there was a sniper who set a fire, started a wildfire. And when the first responders, fire trucks and police got there, they were under attack. They were being sniped at. And there are a couple of casualties there and several injuries. And they did return fire, and they did get the perpetrator has been unalived. It's not clear whether or not he was unalived from the return fire from the police officers or whether he took his own life. But the point is, you put that together with all the other occurrences that are going around the country right now. There have been some strange fires and explosions, and all kinds of weird stuff is going on all over the country right now. And there are a lot of folks out there that there's a lot of chatter about July 4th coming up, and that there could be a massive false flag attack. And I don't know if there's any truth to that. We always hear about, there's fear porn and hope porn out there, and there's people out there saying the sky is falling, and the little boy who cried wolf. So I'm not quite sure. It's like we're standing up in a hammock with roller skates on, juggling chainsaws. And I'm not quite sure what to think about that. But there's a lot of folks out there that are saying, wait a minute, what the heck is going on? Now, we've been screaming about this. Yours truly's been screaming about this for the past couple years, ever since they opened up the border under the Biden-Harris administration, and millions and millions and millions and millions of illegal immigrants came across, many of them males, military age, and there's lots of gotaways. And I was saying a long time ago that many of these people were being helped by the Red Cross, by HAIS, and by the way, former HHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas was on the board of the HAIS, and they were assisting many of these illegals to come into this country, giving them directions, giving them, parts of the border that were easy to cross. And I have no doubt that many of them were being given addresses to go to, cities to go to, where they would find safe haven. They would be fed and sheltered and clothed and cared for, and they would be briefed, and they would be given their missions, and they are supplied. And I have no doubt that there are cells all over this country right now ready to start their shenanigans, shall we say. So it looks like we're going to have some interesting times coming up here, folks. And this is yet another reason why we may want to revisit the Second Amendment and why we have it. Now, I'm not here to advocate any type of violence or anything. I am very much behind the concept of being able to protect your home, your family, and your community. That's why we have a Second Amendment. That doesn't mean that I promote violence, but it's there to stop violence. Anyway, that's something that we want to make sure that we understand. Anyway, where do I start with today's subjects? Well, this morning, as I was getting ready for the show, I noticed that there was a huge news conference. It appears that the largest healthcare fraud takedown in history has occurred. Over 324 individuals have been charged. $14.5 billion in schemes has been exposed, and the people who have been arrested are doctors, nurses, and executives in a sweeping nationwide sting. Now, we're going to have to see how this pans out, but America, you've been ripped off. You have been ripped off. And I don't know if this is a partisan thing. Was it all the Democrats or, I'm sorry, the communists? I mean, the globalists? I mean, the insurrect, whatever label you want to put on them. But yeah, and there's plenty of rhinos that are involved as well. So, I mean, it's not just a thing to go against the Democrats. It's also the Republicans. It's both parties. I mean, corruption is nonpartisan, folks. It's across the board. And I realize that I'm broadcasting on the Red State Talk Radio Network, and overwhelmingly the listeners here are conservative. But please, you'd be living underneath a rock to think that all of your Republicans are clean as a whistle. They are not. I would say that the majority of them have their hands dirty as well. So, and I've been screaming this from the rooftops for years and years and years. I'm very well documented and on the record of having no love for the Republicrats or the Demopublicans. Two wings of the same bird. We keep on hearing that. But, I'm sorry. They work for the corporations. That's where their money comes from. That's the way it works. But we're going to have to follow this particular issue and see how this is going to expand, how this is going to unfold, because this is huge, $14.5 billion. And it's not just in that sector. It's also stuff that's going on in New York State. Anyway, so we'll have to keep an eye on this particular situation. Now, let me see. There were several different topics I want to get to today. Let's see. Which one shall I go to first? I'll tell you what. Okay, everybody has a problem right now. Of course, the Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York is a self-proclaimed socialist Democrat, and he also is, Muslim, and that's scary for a lot of people. And if you look what's happened in England, all the major cities now in England have mayors that are Muslims. I mean, let that sink in. I mean, England is fallen. And the same thing's going on all over Europe. Now, Ireland, the folks are fighting back. They're really protesting and they're going against it. But you look what's happened to Germany and Spain and France. People in Italy are starting to stand up. But they're being overrun by an entirely different culture that is not going to assimilate. No. Their plan is to basically change everybody to think the way they think. That's the way it is. And I'm sorry. It's just it's people are really scared to death about what's going on, and, well, they should be. As a matter of fact, Brigitte Gabriel was asked a question about this exact topic, and she basically spelled this out. And if you don't pay attention to what she's saying, she's absolutely correct. Let's listen to what Brigitte Gabriel had to say.
There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful as well. Yet the Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful as well. Yet the Chinese were able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. On September 11th in the United States, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans that day. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So for all our powers of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims, I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out? It is time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs and start calling the state.
Whoa, there's some fiery words. Now, I have to tell you, I would take issue with some of the numbers that she threw out there. But overall, she's absolutely right. The overwhelming majority of one particular group, whether they be Muslims or Jews or Christian, most of them are peaceful. But when you break down the numbers of how many Muslims there are and how many of them are radical Muslims, there you go. That starts to bring some of these issues to light. And if as she said, if there's 300 million Muslims that are radicals, that's a problem, especially if they've been coming across the border here for the past 4 years. Now, granted, since Tom Homan got in there, they've pretty much closed that off, but the damage is done. And I'm sorry, you Democrats out there that are in L.A. that are screaming about ICE and the deportations and the raids and stuff like that, I'm sorry. They start screaming, is this what you voted for? No, it's what you voted for. You created this problem, and now we got a real mess on our hands. And if you think these illegal aliens are going to stand up and raise their hand and say, hey, I'm one of them, here you can take me. No. They're going to hide in the community. They're going to do everything that they can to make sure that they appear to be, regular citizens here. So unfortunately, there's a lot of weeding out that has to do. And yes, I realize that it's somewhat heavy-handed at times, but we don't have a choice. We do not have a choice. So that's going, going far and beyond what is required here. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because this is going on across the country. And if you look, what's happened up in Dearborn, Michigan, I mean, they've pretty much taken over. And they want Sharia law. Same thing with Epic City down there in Texas. They're putting together an entire city exclusively for the Muslim population where they will impose Sharia law. Sharia, what is it? Law. Law? Wait a second. This is the United States of America. We have a constitution, and that is the law of the land. If you come to the United States, you have to go by the law of the land. You cannot supersede our constitution in our country and impose your own law. No, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking out against this. Does this make me an Islamophobe? No, that's got nothing to do with it. You can't come in here and use political correctness, and say, oh, well, you can't go after them because that's makes you an Islamophobe. No, you can't do that. So I don't know how we're going to correct this situation, but it's gone way too far. And, I got to tell you, there's a lot of folks out there that it's not just the Muslims that people are getting really concerned about. They're really starting to get concerned about, dare I say it? Here it comes, the Jews. Yeah, I mean, I'm not don't even go there, say that I'm an anti-Semite. It's just like you were just hearing from Brigitte Gabriel, the overwhelming majority of Jewish folks are peaceful. But there's a segment out there that is not. And as a matter of fact, Candace Owens spelled it out there, and she's taking a lot of heat, but she's spitting fire and she's telling the truth. But I got to tell you, here, listen to what she had to say here.
The people who really do believe that God's chosen people rape, murder, destroy, pillage, lie, deceive, blackmail, Jeffrey Epstein, all of our politicians, buy, purchase, threaten, manipulate. Goodness, you may really want to crack open a Bible if you think that those are the signs of God's chosen people. Yeah, no, it shouldn't take you a theology course. Just take a little bit of common sense to tell you that no, that is not what God's chosen people do.
That's right. That's not what God's chosen people do. It certainly doesn't abide by the Old Testament, which is basically this, the Jewish, the Torah and the Old Testament are pretty much the same. It got the same 10 commandments, the same prophets, etc., the same principles, the same laws. But something happened. I don't know, where we went wrong or where they went wrong. And I'm not saying that the Christians are absolutely clean either. Just look at the Catholic Church. What a mess that is. And look at, what's his name down there in Texas with the super church? I'm having a brain fart here. Can't remember what his name. Never mind. I'll get back to that. But the point is, though, is that we have some real problems, and there are divisions all over the world right now. And we're going to have to sort this stuff out and figure out who the good guys and who the bad guys are. But there's an article that was published on Lou Rockwell, and let me see if I can find it here. Let's see, where is it here? Okay, no, that's not it. I had it pulled up here just a minute ago. Anyway, it's basically, where is it? I had that here. I got so many tabs open. I got to go and figure these out. There's something called, well, for instance, we covered this last week or the week before, black fatigue. Okay, a lot of people are getting sick to death of the Afro-American community basically destroying themselves. We keep seeing videos of all of these brawls that are breaking out, in malls or in restaurants or on cruise ships. I mean, and it's black on black beating the living bejesus out of each other, and it's just, why is this going on? What the heck, and a lot of the Afro-Americans are standing up and saying, hey, look you guys are making us all look like the N-word, and then that's what they're doing. But anyway, the point is that, there's a lot of black fatigue out there, and now there's Jewish fatigue coming out. Let me see if I can't find it. I had it here a minute ago. What happened to it? Oh, well, I'll get back to it. But if people are getting sick and tired of hearing all this stuff about, the Jews are controlling this, the Jews are controlling that, and you know what? They are. They really are. Let me see if I can find it here. Well, let me see. As I look for that, I want to point out some statistics that came out from the Penn State University in March. Okay, this is some research that came out. This is a bit disturbing. Listen to this.
82% of Israeli Jews support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. This number was taken from a study that was done by Penn State University in March of 2025, where they interviewed over 1,000 Israeli Jews. And in addition to 82% of these Israeli Jews saying that they support ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from Gaza, 56% of these Israeli Jews also support the ethnic cleansing of Palestinian citizens from Israel proper, who are also referred to as Israeli Arabs. And if that wasn't sickening and disgusting enough, 47% of Israeli Jews, nearly half of all Israeli Jews, support replicating the biblical conquest of Jericho, in which all of the inhabitants of an enemy city are slaughtered. So in other words, half of Israeli Jews support the idea of killing every single last Palestinian in a city that is captured by the IDF. And what this goes to show is that the problem is not just Prime Minister Netanyahu. The problem is not just the right wing. The problem is Zionism. It is the settler colonial ideology, which is predicated on the idea that Jewish people have an exclusive right to the Holy Land, while the indigenous people do not. It is the direct result of having ultra-nationalist war criminals filled to the brim in the Israeli government who proudly and shamelessly follow in the footsteps of Rabbi Meir Kahane. Now, in 2025, Rabbi Kahana's ideology of expelling all Palestinians from Israel proper and the Palestinian territories is part of the mainstream.
Isn't that telling? And, this is why so many people are standing up and saying, wait a second, we've got to stop this madness. And yes, it is Zionism. It really is. And there was a conversation between Ryan Mata and Liz Cronan. Let me see, where is that? Let's see. I got all this stuff. I'm doing this all by myself, folks. Cut me some slack. Where is it? I had it here. Here it is. Okay, Ryan Mata was talking to Liz Cronan. Liz Cronan used to work for ABC News, and she was the one who was ready to break the story on the Epstein blackmail videos and the involvement of Bill Clinton and many, many others. And, of course, ABC squashed that whole thing. Anyway, so she got ejected from ABC. But anyway, Ryan Mata, who, by the way, he was one of the co-producers of the film The Sound of Freedom, having to do with sex trafficking. Remember that came out a couple of years ago? Anyway, here's a conversation between Ryan Mata and Liz Cronan. And I'm sorry, she's spelling it out exactly the way it is. You can't deny the facts. Here it is.
So what point did you start waking up to there being this JQ?
Okay, yeah, so like I said,
so let's start at the first. What is the JQ?
It's the Jewish question. A Jewish question that's been going on for years.
And what is that question?
Who really runs the world? Who really runs these organizations? Why are we living in debt? Why is there usury? Why are we all slaves and certain people are prospering? Why is there degeneracy in our society? Who's pushing the trans movement? Who's pushing the trafficking? And behind all of these things that conservatives and normal people are opposed to, before you kind of realize this Jewish question, you're like, oh, it's globalists. Or it's like 10 elites behind a table, in the shadows.
The 300.
Yeah. And we don't really know who they are. They're like the Illuminati. And you hear these terms, and big people that you listen to, they're like, they're globalists. And I used to think that too, but then you get to a point where you're like, I want to know who the globalists are. Mm-hmm. I don't want to it's not fine to just write them off like that. I want to know who that is. So when you actually peel back the layers of that, you realize, behind the heads of all these media companies are Jews. Behind, behind the porn industry, Jews. Behind the people paying off our politicians, Jews. I'm sorry, it's just who it is. They can't hide under globalists anymore. So I would say that's what the Jewish question is.
Very interesting points. Now, them's the facts, folks. You can say that she's anti-Semitic, and that's like saying bribery and murder and usury and all. That seems to be a trait of the Jewish folks. And if you point it out, that makes you an anti-Semite. So are we to believe that that's the way it's supposed to be? It's scary. And I was looking for that article about Jewish fatigue. And let me see, doggone it, here it is. Okay, this is an article that was posted on LouRockwell.com. It's written by Donald Jeffries, and it's a very long article, but I'm just going to share with you the first couple of paragraphs. It says here, and I quote, "A few years ago, I came out of the closet and announced that I had African American fatigue syndrome," like I was talking about a little while ago. "Nobody much noticed it at the time. A few people chuckled, and a few people shouted, 'Racist!' Now, black fatigue is all the rage. It's encouraging that more people have finally stopped holding their tongues about a forbidden topic. But a new malady is upon the land. Perhaps not a biblical plague, but an intellectual impatience that can no longer grin and bear it. Something has triggered in the United States population when the artist formerly known as Kanye West suddenly became the world's foremost admirer of Adolf Hitler. Black podcasters like Jason Whitlock and the Hodge twins became emboldened and started freely discussing their disproportionate power that the Jews, who constitute only 2% of all Americans, wield in this country. Thanks to the historic Israeli partisan Ben Shapiro, who fired her from the Daily Wire, Candace Owens has now become the daughter David Duke would have had if he'd been on the down low with a soul sister. Many blacks have long distrusted Jews. I know, I worked with hundreds of them as a young blue-collar college dropout. And now all that historical mistrust is bubbling to the surface. Now, he mentioned Adolf Hitler in this thing, okay? Because, Kanye West suddenly became the world's foremost admirer of Adolf Hitler. I got to stop right there. Have any of you out there heard the AI translation of some of Adolf Hitler's speeches? Now, many of us have seen, those old, movie clips of Adolf Hitler, and he's throwing his hands around and, oh gosh, Hitler was such a madman, he was this and that. But if you listen to the translation, he was screaming about the exact same stuff that you just heard Ryan Mata and Liz Cronan talking about. It's the same thing. Now, is history repeating itself? And we dare not even criticize the Jews or the Israelis for doing the exact same thing that Hitler was screaming about? Now, I'm not here to promote Nazism. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we need to listen to these audio clips and come to our own decision. And this is why I come to this program with the audio receipts. This is not me proposing this. I'm letting you hear it directly from the horse's mouth. So the point is that there are a lot of people out there that are now starting to say, wait a second, how is it possible that only 2% of the population of this country is Jewish, and yet they control like 99% of your businesses, of Hollywood, of the media, of Big Pharma? I mean, just look at that. Look at how many are in controlling positions of all of this. And you say, how did this happen? And then you look at AIPAC, and you see how many of our elected officials are being paid off. Those three magic words come to mind: bribery, coercion, blackmail. And how is it that Dan Bongino, when he was doing his radio show, he was banging the drum and screaming about the Epstein files? Yeah, we got to find out who's on those lists. Who were the people that were going to, Epstein Island? Who were these people in positions of power that maybe have gotten themselves into trouble? And now that he's assistant FBI director, he's changed his tune completely. Oh, yeah, Epstein killed himself. Yeah, there's no doubt that there were honeypot videos that are in control in the hands of, quote unquote, some Middle Eastern country, unquote. Wait a second, Danny boy, you know exactly which Middle Eastern country has those videotapes. I mean, a high school kid can figure this out. Let's see, Jeffrey Epstein's partner was Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell's dad was Robert Maxwell. He was part of the Israeli Mossad. Oh, so we can't figure out which Middle Eastern country is controlling all of the individuals who visited Epstein Island and got themselves on videotape. We can't figure that out. Now, can we, Dan Bongino? And then we look at how much money is being paid by AIPAC to all of our elected officials, except for Tom Massey. And I find it rather curious that all of a sudden Tom Massey is being threatened with censure by Donald Trump. Wait a second. Hey, Trump, how much money did you get from AIPAC? Well, you know what? If you go to track AIPAC, you'll find out that Trump has gotten over $3 million from them, which for him is like a drop in the bucket. But the point is that is control. And Marco Rubio's on that list too. As a matter of fact, I got, let me see, where the hell is it? It's, let me see, Rubio, I've got got it right here. Rubio, AIPAC, let's see, how much money? $1,013,563. That's how much Marco Rubio has received from AIPAC. So, I think it's a legitimate question. How is it that these people have gotten such control of our government, our media, our manufacturing, pharmaceuticals? I mean, you name it. This is some scary stuff. Anyway, so now we start to understand why, there are Middle Eastern countries like Iran that were, basically launched tons of missiles into Israel, in response to the missile that Israel had launched to take out one of their officials, and they were bragging about it. Yeah, we shot a missile 1,000 miles, and it hit the target. It went right through the bedroom wall and took out that bad Iranian guy. So, okay, yeah, they have such precision, yeah, but they didn't use that precision going into Gaza, did they? So what did Iran do? They launched a snot load of missiles into Israel, and Israel wasn't prepared for it. As a matter of fact, listen to, let me see, where is it? Okay, yeah, here is there was a post here explaining the damage that Israel suffered from all those missiles. Boy, they could dish it out, but they couldn't take it, right? Here it is.
All 21 verified Iranian strikes on Israel that made them rethink their war strategy. 1. Military intelligence headquarters. Iran hit the core of Israel's spy network. Command froze and Israel's eyes and ears were exposed. 2. Rafael Defense Facility, where the Iron Dome and missile defenses are built. Iran basically said, we can destroy your shield. Now what? 3. Mossad headquarters. A strike at Israel's covert brain. It wasn't just walls, it was a message to the entire shadow network. 4. Ben Gurion Airport. Israel's main gateway hit to show even global connections aren't immune. Travel and logistics rattled. 5. Chip manufacturing zones. Microchip centers in Kiryat Gat targeted to shake Israel's tech economy and global supply chains. 6. Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. The financial heart. Iran didn't aim to collapse it, just prove the economic core isn't untouchable. 7. Weizmann Institute of Science. A hub of biotech and physics. Hitting it was about cutting innovation at its roots. 8. Ramat David Air Base. A major northern stronghold. Runways torn up, jets grounded, power near Lebanon and Syria disrupted. 9. Microsoft Data Center. Beersheba's digital core reportedly hit. Cloud disruptions showed even tech backbones aren't safe. 10. Tel Nof Air Base, home to nuclear-capable jets. The strike rattled Israel's deterrence and every defense briefing. 11. Nevatim Air Base, housing F-35 stealth jets, Air Force HQ, and the Prime Minister's own jet. Not just hardware, symbolic dominance under threat. 12. Avda Air Base, where elite pilots train. Disrupting it stalls Israel's future air readiness, a long-term blow. 13. Palmashim Air Base, known for drones, satellites, and missile tests. Hitting it wasn't about today, it was about future wars. 14. Al Jalil Base, a strategic northern outpost. Targeting it tightened the noose around Israel's northern security line. 15. Ministry of Defense headquarters. Missiles landed near the Kiryat. This isn't just a building, it's Israel's military brain. 16. Command and Control Center of the Defense Ministry. Another shot at decision-making. Iran's way of saying your top brass isn't safe. 17. Haifa Bay chemical plants. Missiles struck near fuel lines, no leaks but fierce stalled industrial flow. 18. Haifa oil refinery. A critical energy node. Hitting it wasn't just about fuel, it threatened Israel's lifelines. 19. Power plant in Haifa. Lights, manufacturing, normalcy, all reminders that civilian infrastructure stays in the crosshairs. 20. Hadar power plant. Another piece of the energy puzzle. Hits here meant shortages weren't out of the question. 21. Port of Haifa. Israel's main maritime artery. Striking it threatened trade, naval ops, and the economy. Each strike hit a different nerve. Intelligence, air power, shields, tech, finance, industry, and morale. So the question is, who's really in control now, and who's rewriting the rules of modern warfare?
Interesting. Now, this is not reported because right after these missile strikes, Netanyahu made sure that people were not going to post any of the damage. You can't take videos and post it on social media. No. That would be, then you'd be on their list and the IDF would be knocking on your door. So Netanyahu didn't want the world to know about how much damage was done by these Iranian missiles. And this was also covered by Judge Napolitano. Here it is.
Larry, you have given us a rather extraordinary map of the significant sites in Israel where the Iranians achieved maximum devastation. Yeah. How bad, in general terms, Chris is going to put up the map, but how bad in general terms was the Iranian retaliation, Larry?
Worse than anybody can imagine or wants to acknowledge in the West. In addition, you know, people fail to appreciate how big Iran is. Yes, Israel hit Iran in a number of places. Yes, Israel inflicted damage, but it's like a mosquito biting an elephant. Iran is 3 times the land size of Ukraine, 3 times the population size of Ukraine. Israel is so vulnerable on so many fronts. So look at what Iran did in 12 days. They closed down the only 2 container ports, so no goods were being imported, exported out of those ports at Haifa and Ashdod. They shut down the 2 oil refineries at Haifa and Ashdod, so no more diesel was being produced. They shut down the only international airport. But more importantly, they destroyed a string of Western-backed investments, businesses that were in the military industry in Israel. Those were destroyed. The Weizmann Institute had like 8 buildings. Those were destroyed. Military sites throughout Israel, which have been covered by censorship. The Israeli censors will not promote anything on that. They were destroyed. Israel, candidly, Israel probably would have had to surrender, seek a peace agreement with Iran in 2 weeks had the United States not intervened and brokered this deal for Israel to stop attacking Iran.
Ray, before I get to you, I want to play a clip from somebody who agrees with Larry about the level of devastation. Now, he doesn't always speak the truth, and he often exaggerates, but President Trump, Chris, the victory for everybody clip that you and I just viewed.
I think it was just a tremendous victory for everybody, including Iran. Look, you know, they've got a country, and they've got oil, and they're very smart people, and they can come back. Israel got hit very hard, especially the last couple of days. Israel was hit really hard. Those ballistic missiles, boy, they took out our buildings.
Those ballistic missiles, they took out a lot of buildings. But, Ray, the Israeli government is doing its best to hide from the West and from everybody, including Israelis themselves, the nature and extent of the damage that Iran did. I'm sure you're not surprised that they're doing this.
No, how effective they've been, a little surprised. Of course, they did kick out Reuters and AP to follow Al Jazeera, and there's strict censorship, but that was the information that was missing. And Larry does a terrific service in showing the map. And it's very, very clear that now that we realize this devastation in Israel, it's clear why Trump was able to so easily say to Netanyahu, look, how about a ceasefire? Yeah, please, I agree to ceasefire. How they got Iran to agree to that is another story. I imagine Russia and China weighed in heavily and said, look, agree to it for a while and we'll supply all you need for as long as it takes. Yeah, as long as it takes.
And I got to tell you, folks, I've got friends who are Jewish who are just as disgusted with Netanyahu and his regime and what Israel has been doing to the Palestinians. So this is not a question, the fact that I'm sharing all this information, it doesn't make me an anti-Semite or a Jew hater. No. I grew up in Brooklyn. My best friend was Jewish. And when we were kids, we celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah together. So please don't even go there. Don't say, oh, you're a Jew-hating anti-Semite. Don't even go there. I've got a friend on Facebook. He's down in Argentina, and he's Jewish. And when this whole thing started happening, I started pointing it out. He started, Dave, you're not an anti-Semite, are you? And I said, no, of course not. You know me better than that. And now, as time has gone on, and people are now starting to realize exactly how much the Jewish influence has been over our government and every facet of our infrastructure, everything. Now people are starting to say, wait a second, maybe there's something to it. Maybe maybe we have to rethink our relationship. Let me see here. Okay. Maybe we need to stop and rethink our relationship with Israel. As a matter of fact, there was a female military person who posted this. She didn't put her name out there, and I can understand why, but she posted the following. Here it is.
How long are Americans going to remain silent as we watch the theatrics go back and forth with the Trump administration, with war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu, with the ongoing genocide inside of Gaza? How long are you going to remain silent on everything that is happening, not only to our country, but to the people in Palestine? We have witnessed for 20 months the genocide of the Palestinian people with our tax dollars, with our money. If you drive down rural Ohio, you will see people who are living in homes that are falling apart, driving cars that are falling apart, that are working over 100 hours, 2-3 jobs a week to make ends meet. Yet we are sending our tax dollars to force starve children inside of Gaza. How long are you going to remain silent? How much death and destruction has to pass before you speak up and say something, before you educate yourself on the reality of what we are witnessing, on the reality of these historical moments of our country? Do we stand with American values that consist of humanity and morals and the dignity of a human being? Or do we stand with war and destruction? You need to make that decision now, because this empire is falling.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. So this is time for Americans, all Americans. I don't care if you're Christian, Jew, Muslim, I don't care. We all need to stand up and say, wait a second, this has got to stop. Now, I can't help but think that there is a holy war brewing right now. And it's not just, Jews and Muslims, it's also Christians. There are Christians that are being slaughtered right now in, was it Somalia? I can't remember where it is, but they're just going after all the Christians. It's sort of a repeat of the Bolshevik revolution. And that's something that we're not taught about in school. We're not taught about, there's so much that we're not taught about in school. As a matter of fact, let me see, Charlotte Iserby, bless her heart, when I was doing the Power Hour many years ago, we used to have Charlotte Iserby on as a guest. She, under the Reagan administration, she was at the Department of Education. She wrote a book called The Dumbing Down of America. And she was being interviewed, and I want to share part of that interview here. And gosh, we're running out of time. I got other topics I want to get to. Here it is.
You're saying they're brainwashing. Okay, you're saying these people that are experts in brainwashing is using the Department of Education to brainwash our children.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are they after? Why are they doing it?
Well, if you want to move a country from a free individualistic economy,
which we have.
Yes, or had.
Or had, okay.
To a planned economy, you have to do it through the schools. You have to dumb down and brainwash, change the attitudes and values. You have to completely, social engineering has to go on constantly, and many teachers know what I'm talking about. And people are going to say, well, when did this start? And who on earth ever did this? Why would a plan like that be allowed to be carried out?
That's right.
Well, then you have to go back to 1934, which I will do, and we have to go to the three-pronged fork, okay? So I do think that the watershed year, although you can go back to the early part of the century when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation were deeply involved in education, and that it was decided then that Carnegie would deal with the international part and Rockefeller domestic. So they commissioned the American Historical Association to put together a study of the social studies, and they came up with lots of volumes, but I have one little volume, Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies. And basically that little one is an original book. I wish I'd brought it with me. Too bad. But I don't even dare let it out of the house. It's so important. It called for changing the United States through the schools from a free individualistic economy to a socialist, collectivized, planned economy in the New World Order.
It says that in the book?
Yes.
And that book was written when?
In 1934.
By who?
It was the Carnegie Corporation paid for it. The American Historical Association put it together. And
can people get that book in the library?
No.
No,
they can't. They were very instrumental in getting the Elementary and Secondary Education Act passed, which, as I said before, changed education from knowledge, content-based, academic, to performance-based behavior. And from that time on, because that was necessary for what we're looking at now with school to work agenda is the planned economy is performance-based.
So they're training workers.
They're training
not
little
thinkers,
worker
not
bees.
leaders.
Exactly. At that time, you had a general, Buck Chisholm, a Canadian general psychiatrist, who was a very close friend of Alger Hiss's. And he gave a speech in 1945 to the World Health Organization, which basically recommended getting rid of the conscience.
Wow.
Yes. And he said we would do it through the schools. We would retrain the teachers to be little psychiatrists. He said it is an international system they're looking at. They're going to change the behavior of the children. They're going to change the teachers' training. They're going to do everything. He told them everything.
And they didn't believe him?
No, they just let, well, you know what goes on.
Mm-hmm. And that reminds me of George Carlin. Remember, he said they want obedient workers. Obedient workers. They don't want people out there that are capable of cognizant, critical thinking skills. They want people who will just basically learn and repeat and memorize. Don't think outside the cage. And this is why the Department of Education has come under fire, because people are starting to realize that the Department of Education is actually the Department of Indoctrination. Yes, it is. Now, yes, there's a lot of liberals out there that are screaming, Trump wants to destroy the Department of Education. He wants to turn it over to the states, just like he did with the issue of abortion. Take it out of the federal government's hands. Pass it over to the states. It's up to you guys to figure out what you want to do. But the simple fact of the matter is that ever since the Department of Education came into being, at that time, the United States was right at the top of the list, best education in the world. But every year, that rating started to drop. And again, the analogy that I use is that if you're going to hire somebody, if you have a one-year contract with somebody to do a job, at the end of the year, you review their job performance, and if they suck at what they're doing, you fire their sorry butt. But if you like the job that they're doing, you renew the contract. Well, let's apply that to the Department of Education. The Department of Education gets its money from the federal government, and the Department of Education went into being, and immediately the next year, the United States quality of education fell. What did the government do? They renewed the charter. They just kept on going. And the following year, the United States quality of education fell again. And the charter was renewed again. The contract just kept getting renewed. And now we're like, 28th, 29th in the world? And the Department of Education must be doing the exact job that the federal government wants. They want obedient workers. They want people that are not capable of critical thinking and figuring things out. And so this is exactly the job that the Department of Education is doing. So, I mean, this is not rocket science figures, folks. This is common sense. Now, I realize that common sense is, almost illegal these days. But that's basically the way it is. This is why the Department of Education is under fire right now. So now people who are still capable of critical thought, now, like I said, we're going full circle here with this broadcast. They're coming back now and saying, wait a second, how is it that Israel has got such overwhelming control over the United States government? And I want to point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene was recently interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And it's about an hour and a half interview. I was going to go through the whole thing and grab some clips, but it's just too long to be able to go through and prepare for this particular show. But the first thing that she came out and talked about was how there is influence from foreign nations that are governing, that are influencing our policies. Now, the question is, which foreign nation do you think she was referring to? Was it the Congo? Was it Italy? Was it Sweden? Which country do you think is influencing our politicians? This is a no-brainer, folks. You can figure it out. You could do it, But so, yeah, I go back to the Lou Rockwell article that basically is saying that there is a rash of Jewish fatigue that's sweeping across the country right now. And well, it should. People need to stop and start thinking, hey, look, is it anti-Semitic or Jew-hating to point out the fact that we have an undue influence of one particular minority group that's governing everything? Are they really God's chosen people? There are a lot of folks now that are taking a look at the Talmud and going through that and saying, oh my God, this is really radical. I mean, we hear about radical Christians, extremist Christians, extremist Muslims. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Just like Brigitte Gabriel was saying, and I played that clip earlier in today's program, it's always a small portion of this particular group that is responsible for the atrocities and the craziness that's going on. And we hear about Christian extremists, we hear about Muslim extremists, but we never hear about Jewish extremists. Interesting. Why do you suppose that is? Could it be that there is too much influence in our media? If you take a look at NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, look at how many folks that are in very powerful positions in these networks and who they're affiliated with. Let's see, if we've only got 2% of the U.S. population is Jewish, common sense would say that would apply towards these institutions, but it doesn't. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that 2% are not affiliated with Israel. So we got a real problem with on our hands here, folks. And it's not anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish to point this out. We do have a group of extremists, or shall I say people who have been manipulated or blackmailed or coerced or paid off. AIPAC. Yeah, lobbying. Is that really lobbying, or is that bribery? Think about it, folks. So we got to start sorting this thing out, and we can't be afraid of being labeled. We got to start looking at the facts. And like Liz Cronan said, look, I'm not here to spout hatred or anything like that. I'm just giving you the facts. So, I mean, this is where we're at, folks. Now, I had a couple other topics I wanted to get to because there's let me get rid of this. There is a lot of information that's coming out about the hokey pokey thingy dingy. As a matter of fact, I'll get to that tomorrow. But let me see. Where is it? David Martin. This is important. Listen to this one. Here it is.
There is a single silver bullet inside of the 1986 National Vaccine Injury Act and under the 2005 PrEP Act, which is that there was a felony committed in the process of promulgating an emergency use authorization. Then the corporate liability shields that protect companies like Pfizer and Moderna and Gilead Sciences, and that protect the hospitals and the consolidated healthcare organizations. Those civil protections against liability exist only if there were no felonies committed in the creation of the emergency use authorization.
Right.
We know that from racketeering, from lying to Congress, and from now premeditated and negligent and reckless homicide, we know that there are a number of felonies that have been committed. What we're now doing is actively pursuing the enforcement of law enforcement around the country to bring those felony cases forward so that we have a pierce of the liability shield that currently is the reason why the pharmaceutical companies and the healthcare companies and everybody else thinks that they can operate with impunity. Real human beings right now are being murdered by people in lab coats today, right here in Salt Lake.
Wow. I wanted to plant that seed because we're going to touch on this subject tomorrow. That's right. The pharmaceutical companies have been shielded from any liability for many, many, many years when it comes to the hokey pokey thingy dingies. But guess what? If you commit a felony, that vulnerability is that invulnerability is gone. And we need to take a look at what ethnic group has been governing these pharmaceutical companies. Put the puzzle pieces together. Oh, boy. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's broadcast. I thank you for your listenership. As always, I ask that you do business with the WTF Reports and keep us on the air. Until tomorrow, folks, God bless you all. Stay safe and stay free. And I'll see you tomorrow.